How do you respond when someone asks you, when are you going to have a baby?
Now, this depends on who's posing the question, because I feel that depending on my relationship with the person, if it's someone that's either a close friend, a family relative that I'm close with, then I feel okay answering honestly and.
And what's honestly? What do you say?
Honestly, either saying that we're still trying, or diving in. Obviously, it all depends on the context. Maybe diving into more details as far as we're having a few difficulties, but when
a few,
just a few.
A lot.
But when it comes to someone that I don't really have a relationship with, I'm not really close to, or I feel like the person's kind of prying, and then that they're kind of like stepping outside of their zone, basically. Then I just kind of I wouldn't say I let them have it, but in the sense that I just come out with everything. I'd be like, oh yeah, like we've had 4 miscarriages, and the last one was an ectopic pregnancy, and we're going through a lot right now, and it's been difficult. So like I kind of
make the person feel bad.
I not necessarily want to make them feel bad, but like I'm like, I guess my perspective is that we don't really have those deep conversations, and one thing that this journey has taught me is that when it comes to a couple's pregnancy, like that's very personal.
Mm-hmm.
It's very personal, and even though in our society, obviously since we got married, that's the next progression.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't feel like that the person should be posing that question unless you have a relationship with that person.
Right, unless you're close and you talk about things that are a little bit more intimate and personal. Yeah, and I think, to tell the truth, if we didn't go through our experiences, I think I would have been one of those people.
Yes.
And so as much as, just like you, I sort of get annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. Maybe you don't get annoyed.
No,
but
I get annoyed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, depending on, just like you, if I do get a little bit annoyed, but I try to put myself in the person's shoes, because if you haven't experienced it, or if somebody in your environment has not gone through infertility, then you don't know anything about that world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like casual talk, like, oh, when are you going to start a family?
Yeah.
And but I've learned that this is something very personal, and this is something very intimate.
Yes.
And it's, don't ask the question if you're not able to really have that full conversation with the person,
mm-hmm.
if it's not something that's going well in their lives. So
and just to add on too, and also I've also been surprised because Sarah and I, we did a radio interview. Was it after our second, or
I don't remember.
It was a couple of years back, and a couple of my coworkers heard about it, and then it was kind of nice, even though I don't talk to my coworkers in that way, but a couple of them came up to me and shared their story. So at least there was that commonality, and
right.
And at least in that context, I felt okay for them to pose a question and talk, and also mm-hmm. the fact that we went kind of like shared our story on the radio too. It's like it's out there,
right? So they feel like, oh well, you put it out there, then
exactly.
I can. Yeah.
But I guess the way I feel strongly about being annoyed is it mainly stems from people that I'm not sure what their intents are when they're posing that question.
Oh, I see. You feel like they're maybe more prying rather than really want to like share.
Share, exactly.
Right. I see. Okay. Fair enough.
Okay. Now your question.
Oh, yes.
How do you feel about hearing the news about others getting pregnant?
That's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a very loaded question, actually. To answer that question, I would have to. It depends on where I am mentally,
mm-hmm.
and that varies a lot depending on where we are in our treatments.
Yes.
If we're taking a break, or if we're going through IVF, or if I just had a miscarriage. then it hits differently, right? So in general, I do try to have the mindset that somebody else's success doesn't impact mine, right? It's kind of like, somebody get a promotion and you wanted it, but just because they got it, that doesn't mean yours is not coming,
Exactly.
or that doesn't mean that you're less than the person.
Yeah.
But if you're in that mindset where you're feeling down and you're feeling a little bit negative, then it is easy to feel jealous and resentful. But if I'm in a positive mindset and I'm thinking of, this is going to happen for us and I know it, and we all have ups and downs. So if I'm in one of my ups, then it's easier for me to be a little bit more positive for that person. And to tell the truth, I can't help how I react. We're all human.
Yes.
And but I try to correct myself if it's a negative emotion, and just kind of self-talk and say, you know what, Sarah, like, yours is coming. This has nothing to do with you, and like, you congratulate the person and you have to be happy for them, just like you wouldn't want somebody to be happy for you. So yeah, I think it all depends where I am in my mentally, but I do make the effort of being happy for any happy news. That if somebody else is happy for themselves, then I want to be happy for them as well. So I try to be positive, although it's not always easy.
Exactly. And like, I'm glad you brought the point about the fact that you're human. Like, you're bound to have those feelings where it's like, okay, like, it's not necessarily the why not me, but the whole thing is like, oh, like yes, you're happy for the person, but then you can't bring it back to yourself.
Right. It's almost a reminder of how easy that experience is supposed to be, or like the normal, quote unquote,
yes.
Although it's not as normal as we think.
Yeah.
The normal pregnancy or fertility journey should be like, right? Within you hear that within a year, everybody, if everything's good, you should be able to get pregnant and have a viable pregnancy.
Yes.
So you feel like it's true when you hear it multiple times amongst your family and friends, and it doesn't happen to you. Sometimes I do wonder, like, why us, and what's wrong, because technically we don't really know. We haven't had any real answers. So sometimes I do go down that hole, but I do try to be more positive, and it is an effort. It's kind of like mindfulness, just thinking about more positive things rather than being negative.
Okay.